Blood is a mnemonic to help you remember 4 important principles of fencing: balance, line, eye contact, and distance. Balance is important for sword fighters so that they can move and respond quickly. The best way to maintain balance is to keep the head and torso upright and the knees bent to lower the center of gravity. Line represents the geometry of the fight. For example, any cut with a sword comes in along a specific line of attack. The defender must position their sword correctly in order to intercept this line of attack with an effective line of defense. This action is sometimes called closing the line. Sword fighters should never look directly at the opponent's weapon. For training purposes, a good option is to maintain eye contact to help train the eyes to rely on peripheral vision. At advanced levels, a sword fighter typically uses a 1,000-yard stare through the opponent's sternum. Different techniques work at different distances. You can't swing a sword at someone if there's no room, and you can't wrestle if you can't reach your opponent. It is essential to be at the appropriate distance for the implementation of the desired technique. The blade of the sword is used for both attacking and defending. It has a forward edge, also known as the true edge, and a back edge, also known as the false edge. The forward edge has a longer reach and more power than the back edge. The fort is the part of the blade closer to the hilt and has greater leverage. The foible is the end closer to the point of the blade and has less leverage but more attacking power than the fort, since it travels at a greater speed than the fort. The hilt is where the sword is held and is made up of 3 parts. The grip is the handle. It is typically made of wood and wrapped with materials that may include cord, leather, or wire. The crossguard, also known as the quillin, is the part above the grip that is used to protect the hand.
So you can see it's got the side ring right here. This keeps my opponent's blade from chopping my fingers off. The padan here, the evolution of that first little ring that was added on to protect the finger when it goes across the crossbar. The crossbar here has been curved up and around. You can sometimes trap your opponent's sword in that little hook. And the other end has been extended to become a knuckle bow to protect the front of my hand. And then you add these counter guards on the sides, and you get this beautiful, elegant shape that's also really, really good to fight with.
The pommel is the enlarged part at the end of the hilt, which is used to counterbalance the weight of the blade. It adds to the overall weight of the sword, but makes the blade seem lighter. The pommel can also be used offensively in combat. A guard is a position a sword fighter stands in or passes through during an encounter. Every combat system has its characteristic guards, and each one is a position from which a sword fighter can execute different moves. Often, moves will end in a way that leaves the sword fighter in a guard, allowing them to flow smoothly to the next movement. Practicing the transitions between guards is a good way to learn how the body and weapons move together. Stepping and footwork is important for a sword fighter because it allows them to change distance and line without losing balance. There are several different steps a fencer can use to move around, each of which has a different purpose. There is the passing step, where one foot comes in front of the other in order to cover ground faster. The sliding step is where the lead foot takes a step forward and then is followed by the trailing foot, keeping the relative position between them the same. This step covers less ground. The gather step is similar, but the trailing foot moves first, followed by the lead foot, which is a little less stable but allows for quicker turns. The triangle step is a way to maintain distance but switch the forward leg. The back leg comes forward and to the side, and then the front leg goes back to the same point where the back leg started. When stepping like this, you can imagine positioning your feet on the points of a triangle. The back step is when the trailing foot moves to the side so that the sword fighter can evade the opponent's line of attack. Tempo. Timing is crucial in making successful attacks. A tempo can be defined as the time it takes to complete one movement. If you can attack your opponent in the middle of their tempo, they will be unable to respond quickly enough to block your attack. Moving weapon first. It is important to always extend the sword first before moving toward your opponent. Otherwise, your body will be an easy target for them to attack. The Higgins Armory Academy of the Sword bases its work on a world-class program to study and interpret surviving combat treatises of the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Most of these treatises were written in Germany and Italy. The earliest of these are the German treatises, which go back as far as the 1300s. Many of the German treatises are ultimately based on the teachings of Johannes Lichtenauer. Lichtenauer was a German fencing master in the 1300s who established a tradition of fighting techniques that carried on for centuries and influenced other fencers and masters. One important follower of Lichtenauer was Johannes Lecoucner, a 15th century German cleric and fencing master. His combat treatise for the single-handed sword is detailed and richly illustrated, and is the most thorough documentation not only of Lichtenauer's style of sword fighting, but of medieval sword fighting in general. A translation of Lecoucner's treatise is being published by Higgins curator Jeffrey L. Forgang. Joachim Meyer was another of Lichtenauer's followers. His treatise, Art of Combat, published in 1570, is a comprehensive encyclopedia of German martial arts. Within his treatise, he covers the longsword, dusak, rapier, dagger, and staff weapons. His work stands as one of the most important texts of the medieval German tradition.